Right. It's been about an hour since this card dropped. This is the latest spoiler from Compendium of Wraith. And it's really strange. Tiger Trap, 0 cost, Ranger Defense Reaction, Trap, blocks 3, red. When this defends and the attacking hero controls 3 or more attacks with greater damage than their base, attacks they control can't gain damage this turn. I think that this card is very obviously pointing in a certain direction. Even the name itself is a little bit of a hint as to why this card has been designed the way that it has. And that's because it has a predominantly very narrow use case. For you to activate this trap, your opponent must attack you 3 separate times with buffed damage before it does anything. Already that narrows it down quite a bit. There are some characters who potentially run things like Channel Mount Heroic, and they can do multiple attacks in a turn, and they can get 9 value out of Channel Mount Heroic on a turn. This would essentially, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm looking at this, and we'll get into this a bit later. I'm looking into this from a Riptide perspective, right? Because I play a lot of Riptide. Riptide's the character that I love. Riptide's the character that I always gravitate back towards after spending some time playing other characters. Riptide is my guy. See, I see the word trap, I go, cool, Riptide card, right? We'll get into that later. This is a card that defends for 3, so that's 3, and then pings for 1, and maybe drops off 2 to 3 value off of an opponent's attack. It has to be the 3rd attack in the chain link, which means that you've already copped 2 powered up attacks, right? Most often, people are going to be swinging at you with attacks that are buffed. They're going to be attack action cards, right? So to get value out of this card, your opponent has to have already flung 3 attack action cards at you that are buffed. Which means that you're only going to be debuffing 2 attacks. There is a world, and now obviously this card is designed for an anti-ninja, anti-zen card, right? This card is very clearly designed to mess with big tiger turns, like off of a tiger swipe, and then swinging for a bunch of 0. If you block this on a tiger swipe, after he's already buffed like 2 or 3 attacks, you're golden. Awesome. Where's Zen? Has anybody been playing Zen in their CC armories recently? Now look, there's not really any other place that they could have put this, right? If they had dropped this in another set, if they placed this in an expansion slot in the next set, people were going to be angry. If they published this in a gem pack, the people are going to be angry. If James White personally mailed copies of this to every single Riptide player, they would probably be angry, you know? There's a lot of anger and a lot of disappointment coming from this card, and I understand it to a point. And I want to get into why there's a lot of anger and disappointment around this card. I've been in the Riptide section of the Flesh and Blood community since I started playing the game, right? You can scroll back through the purple Discord, the Riptide channel, and you'll see my name. I'm in there every other day talking about some dumb shit that's happening. Over the course of time that Riptide has been around, we have gained a lot of cards that have supported him, right? Title of this deck list is Maybe One Day, and it's not really a deck list. I would like to go over all of the cards that have been introduced for Riptide specifically, and to a large point this also impacts Ranger as a class, and I want to look at which cards are definitely cards that go in your deck, which cards sometimes go in your deck depending on which you're playing, and what cards are like, they're just kind of there, they exist, and maybe one day you'll use them. So obviously, off the gate, let's bang out the Riptide specs, okay? Because we got Riptide spec, we got a Murky Water, right? This card's phenomenal. Every Riptide list outside of the mainline aggro red line cards, decks, play this card. This card's awesome. It rewards you for sitting on a card for a while. You give it an aim counter, you let it sit in Arsenal for the perfect opportunity, you shoot it for Dominate for 7, you get a trap back. Perfection. Exactly what you need in Riptide. Very thematic, works with the deck, works with the main game plan of the deck. 10 out of 10 design. You got stuff like Intoxicating Shot. This is maybe a little bit less all over the shop. Like, I don't think every list is running this. Ever since Sile Sarong came out, this card kind of got a little bit more value because you can potentially swing 0 for 4 with Go Again off of having this in your arsenal. But this very clearly has like a thematic reason for this card existing, right? It's another Riptide spec, so obviously you'd expect these ones to kind of curtail into that sort of playstyle. Create a courage and a quicken token when it hits a hero. You take 1 point of damage and give me a card, and then you get to swing your next card with greater than its base and Go Again, which both of us will really enjoy. Awesome. Spectacular card. Triggers traps, works into the main game plan. Wonderful. We got Take the Bait. This is in inventory because I think that this may be the penultimate card. And I've already made a video where I just kind of went off and just talked about how good this card is and how much I love it, right? And at the end of the day, the funny thing is, it's not good. Like, it's not great. It's not a spectacular card. You're not going to play this card and just win the game, right? It's not a silver bullet. But it does literally everything that Riptide wants to do, right? It looks for a card. It looks for the perfect answer for what you're playing against, right? If you're going against an assassin, you play reacts. If you go get a pendulum trap, you go get a pitfall trap, you go get a spike pit trap. If you're playing against, I don't know, Rathe, and he's got a fucking 2 auras that are about to pop, and he's going to come in for 20 damage. You go grab Buzzsaw Trap, easy peasy lemon squeezy. It gives them a thing that forces them to attack into you. Forces them to attack into you. Or they just don't do anything. And then you get a Time Walk as well. Awesome. This card, I've played with this a little bit. It's not great. It's not a spectacular card. But the thing that this card did was it opened up a whole new avenue of playstyle. There were people out there who were playing every day. They were playing Sandscour, Greatbow, Riptide. And it wasn't great, but it was fun and it had some level of consistency. This is Sandscour Greatbow's greatest friend, because now you just go find any arrow you want, put it on top of your deck. You've got 3 traps in Arsenal. 3 traps in Arsenal, far out. You got 3 traps in Graveyard. You play Take the Bait. You've got a blue in hand. You've got Sandscour Greatbow. Boom! Murky Water for 7 Dominate. Off the rip. Literally go find Murky Water on a stick. Wonderful. Perfect card for Riptide. Does everything that you need it to do, right? It's not aggro slop. You don't just play it, get 4 value off of it immediately. There's a little bit of back and forth. You might lose a point of life because your opponent swings back at you. But if you've got traps, you can trigger a bunch of like really good on hits, right? Awesome card. There's not a single Riptide card that got created that is a Riptide specialization that doesn't at least go in some decks, if not all decks, right? Special mention goes to Plan for the Worst. This does not have the words Riptide specialization on it, but this is a Riptide specialization. 0 block 3. You look at your everything that your opponent has on offer for you, you get to know in advance. And then you get to go through your deck and find traps that punish whatever they've got coming for you. And then, on top of that, you also get to destroy all cards in their hand and arsenal if they don't use all of them. This is Seek and Destroy on a stick. Forces them to attack into you. And you can go and get stuff that will help you survive if they're just going to go all gas, no brakes. Or, you know what? It says up to 3 traps. There's a really bad time sometimes where you play this and you see your opponent's hand and your opponent's hand has CNC and a pummel, right? And you're like, oh, that sucks, right? You don't have to go and find traps. You can just like play this, see that your opponent has CNC, go, you know what? Whatever. I'll just leave it. And then you shuffle your deck, and then you draw 4 cards, and maybe you just draw enough to just block it out, right? Awesome. Spectacular. Again, does literally everything that Riptide wants to do. Wants to play traps, wants to force his opponent's hand, wants to slowly attrition him over the course of the game, wants to set up bad turns for your opponent. Wonderful. Wonderful. And then we get into a bit more of the weeds, right? We get into cards that have been introduced in sets that don't feature ranges, but they're expansion slot cards, right? And these cards were generated in order to maybe fill in a slot where things weren't really working for Riptide, right? They were made to allow Riptide or other ranges to experiment a little bit and change some stuff. We get stuff like Long Draw Half Glove, which is really good in a lot of Riptide lists. Mainly more mid-range Riptide lists and defensive fatigue lists. But this makes it so that if Warmonger's Diplomacy is floating about, you can just instant destroy this, get +4 anyway. That's a pump through Warmongers. Blocks 1 with Battle Worn, perfect. This also lets you convert a hand. If you only have one attack and you're holding onto a bunch of traps, this lets you convert a hand offensively if need be. Wonderful. Wonderful card. Alright? This is, again, like everything that... And you know what? This isn't exclusively a Riptide card either. I'm sure this Azalea is on the goddamn art, right? Azalea is in the art box. Maybe she ran this card a little bit. I don't know. I'm not an Azalea player, right? And we got stuff like... Where else were we? Expansion slot cards. Okay, yeah, a lot of them, unfortunately, end up down in this pile, right? We're going to leave this pile for later. So this is the expansion slot cards that will fight. This is also technically an expansion slot card, as is this. But you know what? We already covered those. A set comes out specifically that has Ranger in it. Ranger has not been in a set since Outsiders, right? Almost, I think it was like 2 years. Hang on, I have the products page up. Or I did. Yeah. Outsiders, March 24th, 2023. High Seas, June 6th, 2025. We've had no Rangers in mainline sets for over 2 years. I had to just quickly run through the months in my head to make sure that was right. Over 2 years, right? High Seas comes out. What cards in High Seas do we have? Well, we have Return Fire. Return Fire is also really good. Maybe not for every situation, but this is a 1-card 7. In most circumstances, right? Sometimes you draw this and you don't draw an arrow, and that, yeah, it's fine. It's blocks 4, cool. But in most circumstances, this is a 1-card 7, because you will block, you banish something that costs 0, you swing it next turn. Awesome. This can help you open up a turn with a bolt and shot or a swift shot. Awesome. This is a block. Ranger does not have blocks. Block cards may end up being really, really important. This gets around overpower, right? Because it's a block card. That's wonderful. This fits so many little niches that Riptide and Rangers as a whole really were lacking and needed. Okay? And then we got stuff like Swift Shot. This is in the main deck because I don't think that there is a single aggro Riptide list that is not running this card, because this is 0 for 4 go again off of Manta, off of Dreadball, off of Return Fire, bringing it back, off of so much stuff. There's so many things that let you just put a card face up in your arsenal. Boom, this is 0 for 4 go again. That fits into a lot of niches. There's sometimes I will play this in a mid-range list because this is kind of like Bolt and Shot, but a little bit different, you know? It's Bolt and Shot, which can't be screwed over by, like, I don't know, Celestial Reprimand. Prism is always on the forefront of my mind as a Riptide player. And then we get into the maybe sometimes sort of deck. Oh, yeah, this was an expansion slot card, but like I forgot that this has existed. Literally, I'm talking about all the Riptide cards, all the Ranger cards that have been brought out, and I forgot that this card existed. This card, sit an arrow face up in your arsenal and spell Void 2. Cool, thanks, man. Whatever. Might prevent Surge every now and again, but it's really nothing crazy, right? This is a, we run this if we are in a wizard matchup because why not? But it doesn't do anything, really. It saves us 2 life. It saves us, more often than not, 1 life, maybe a Surge effect. And then we've got these. We've got Drop the Anchor. This is aggro card that helps you hitting and a hero tapping them and all allies they control. A lot of the time, tapping the hero is not really a big deal because a lot of heroes that tap do so at instant speed. So this is kind of a nothing burger of a card. All allies they control is good because it helps with the gravy matchup. And I assume this will... You know what? This card will gain effects and just be a good card in the future. Oh my god, that's like the whole thing that we're talking about. That's the whole thing that we're talking about. Dry powder shot. Good now. You put in face up for 1 cost, it comes in for 5. You couple this 2 hand here, 2 card, that's 7, and this is 5. That's a 2 card 12. That's pretty good, right? It fits sometimes. This is an aggro card. Here's the problem. Alright, now we're in Compendium. Oh, not even that, actually. We're still in High Seas. But we're going to talk about this section. We're in Compendium at this point, right? Compendium gave us traps that are actions. So cool. So much cool stuff. So much cool design space. Everything's opened up. I can't wait to sit down and really get into it and just experiment with these cards and work out what works where and how and when. Something like Spellbane Trap is insane, because this might end up being a main deck card, because at the end of the day, it is simply a buff. It is a 0 for 3 with Go Again. They gave Ranger Head Jab. It blocks 2. That's kind of bad, but it is Head Jab, right? It's a buff. You can recur this with Murky Water. You can hit Murky Water and recur this. You can hit Murky Water. This is in your graveyard. You banish 2 traps and a Spellbane Trap. Perfect. Now your opponent doesn't know whether you've set up for a offensive turn or a negative turn. Obviously, there's a random element to it. Sometimes you're not going to get the Spellbane Trap, right? But this can help you. If you've got 3 of these in the graveyard, you can just banish 3 of these and say, all right, next turn, I'm still going hard. You know, I'm just going to keep the pressure up. I'm just going to keep the pressure up. Let's go, let's go, let's go. You got the blue ones. I've left Frail Swing Line in here because I think that this is the one that is going to be the hardest to trigger, because this needs an attack with less damage than its base, which means that you have to have them have a Frailty token off of a Codex of Frailty, or that's literally one of the only times that I can think that this actually will do anything. Frailty token, and then you defend with this. Naturally, because it has the hardest to satisfy effect, it has the strongest effect, right? It has the hardest to satisfy condition, therefore it has the strongest effect. Its controller discards a card. This sounds phenomenal. I have a feeling that in practice, this card is going to be very difficult to trigger. Courageous Crossing, less so. Attack greater than its base. The effect doesn't matter. You block for 3 with an attack greater than its base, you ping for 1 with Riptide. Awesome, because this triggers. It doesn't actually need to do this. It triggers and deals 1 damage. Quickening Sand. Arguably the best one out of the lot, because it's just defends and attack with Go Again, which is so much. There's so many attacks with Go Again, right? So flatline, you're getting 4 value out of this card if you block with it. Create a Quicken Token. Create a Quicken Token under target hero's control. This is Go Again on a stick for Ranger, which can help you set up. If they go through and they attack a bunch and you don't block with this early, you can block with it late. If you don't block with it late, you can just play this, and then it gives you Go Again the next turn. You could swing Murky Water for 7 into Murky Water for 7. There's a world where that exists, right? This is a really, really good card. Tapping target hero ally, again, who cares? Honestly, tapping an ally might save you 6 life, which is really good. But this just as a whole, having the modular effect of being able to create a Quicken Token under target hero's control is phenomenal. Right? Then we get into the maybe pile. And this is where I feel like a lot of the frustration and disappointment comes from. If anybody from the dev team is watching this, you can skip ahead to this part, because you know what all these cards do. You know which ones are good, you know which ones are bad, alright? We get into the maybe pile. Now, these concealed cards are in here because these ones are, realistically speaking, these ones should probably be up here, just by virtue of the fact that these cards are made for Sage, right? You don't have Trench in Sage. You don't have Tunic in Sage. You don't have a good chess piece as Sage. These cards are probably a 3 of in every Sage deck, because then you can just equip them as you need them to play against whatever character you're playing against. The only thing that I don't like about these cards is that the attacks have to hit you in order for you to activate them. So an attack with greater damage than its base, an attack has hit you and they've activated an attack reaction, or when an attack with Go Again hits you. The Concealed Nerve Gas is probably the easiest one to trigger, and this one is probably the hardest to trigger with the best payoff, right? And it makes sense, they follow everything. Very good theming, cool card for Sage, bad card overall for, like, these cards are never getting played in CC, I don't think. Right, or LL, or anything for that matter. Like, Trench is just too good, Tunic is just too good. Like, this stuff is just staying here forever, right? So these are in between inventory and maybe. Now we get to the maybe slot. So, this is where a lot of the frustration, I feel, originates from. We get so many cards that currently, in the current ecosystem of the game, don't do anything, and we are provided these cards and said, and it's not said out loud, right? Nobody from LSS has gone, this card's going to be great one day, trust me, right? But it's kind of hinted at that these cards are built up to be like, oh, this card will be great one day. This card's effect is important because it will be good one day, right? One of the primary culprits of this is chain reaction, right? On a flat rate, this is a 0 cost, it blocks 3, it pings for 1 on a Go Again attack. Its effect sounds really, really powerful, right? When it defends an attack with Go Again, you may turn a non-attack action card in your arsenal face up. If you do, you may play it this turn as though it were an instant, right? Playing things as instant and cheating out action points is really good most of the time. This card came out and there were 2 targets for it, effectively, right? There is Plan for the Worst, and there is maybe Codex of Frailty, if you're lucky, right? Nowadays, there's Take the Bait. It could hit this. You could maybe do something with this. I don't know. The only use case I found for this with chain reaction is that you could screw up a Katsu's combo turn because you just play this and then they have to attack with the fish, with the bait. You could flip any of these action traps now and give yourself or your opponent a token which will help them more than it helps you, realistically speaking. Maybe with this one, and then, like, what are you doing with that? Like, you're just giving them -1 value, right? This card, when this card came out and Hunted, I went, oh my god, there's got to be something in High Seas that made this card get pushed into Hunted. Because this card's effect must have gone absolutely insane in High Seas. And then High Seas came out, and Fire in the Hole does nothing. Monkey Powder does nothing. Hook, Line, and Sinker all definitely do something at instant speed, but they don't do anything good. And then you've got stuff like Entangling Shot. When it's put face up in your arsenal, that's draft chaff, right? This doesn't do anything for the greater scheme of things. When this is put face up into your arsenal, you may tap target ally. Draft chaff doesn't do anything. Doesn't have Go Again. You don't play that card. Monkey Powder. Turn a blue into a new card and give her an attack +1 and overpower. I tried working with this card. And I think there may be something for this in the future. But right now, it's awful. And it's the same with all of these cards. Look at the top card of your deck. If it's an arrow, you may place it face up in your arsenal. If you do this, it gets +1. That might be really good. You might be able to turn this into a Bolton Shot one day, when you have some way of consistently looking at the top of your deck that's not awful. Spellbane, Trap, Yellow, and Blue, they're kind of just here as like, you're not playing a blue pump, you're not playing a yellow pump. These cards are just kind of here, right? And then we've got stuff like Reel In. Reel In, realistically speaking, has gotten a lot better with Compendium coming out, because now you have so many blue traps, right? You have 3, 6, 9, plus the 3 Riptide traps. That's 12. That's 12. You can plug 6 resources into this bad boy and draw maybe 4 cards off the top of your deck immediately. You know what I mean? So this card has gotten better. This card came out in heavy hitters. Heavy hitters. This card came out here. And Compendium of Wraith is coming out now. That's 2 years. Almost to the day. That's 2 years since we got this bad boy. And so we're only now starting to see this card kind of work. And even then, it probably doesn't work really well. You know, like, you use this to go get a bunch of traps. Big whoop, who cares? What are the traps going to do? They literally don't do anything unless they've got very specific conditions. Which, I get it. I get that that's traps, right? I get that that's the whole point of it. But man, I'm always looking for a reason to put Reel in my deck. Always, 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 always looking for a reason to put Reel in my deck. Because I love this card. I love the idea of it. I love that it's an instant. I love that it's a blue. I hate the fact that it doesn't block, but that's because of it being an instant. We only just recently started getting instants that actually block. I don't know. So then we get stuff like this, right? This is the other trap that dropped along with all of the other nonsense. So defends an attack with greater damage than its base, dominate, and go again. The attack gets -2 and loses and can't gain abilities. This is a silver bullet card. And it's a silver bullet card in the class which is incapable of holding a card in their arsenal for multiple turns. Because they need their arsenal to present any sort of offensive damage. Right? Presenting this card and putting this card in your deck as Lexi and LL, I don't even know what you'd be doing at that point, right? You put this in your arsenal, you've got to run New Horizons, you've got to put this in your arsenal face down, and then you've just got to constantly play with the second slot of New Horizons. That doesn't even work, because you can't turn this face up in your arsenal. I don't think you can turn this face up in your arsenal. Can I see Lexi here? No, hang on, 1 second. Pause. You can turn this up face up. Okay, never mind. So, Lexi makes this card. This card was made for Lexi, right? So if this card's made for Lexi, because you can flip this face up in Arsenal and then just like let it sit there, she's the only character who has any sort of unconditional flip any card you want to that's in your Arsenal face up. This card's made for Lexi, why does it have the trap subtype? Why? I don't get it. I guess, is Lexi running Reel in to try and Rainbow Goo Trap on Bravo and come on his feet? I should not say stuff like that. I'm crashing. So this brings me back to the thing that I closed. Hold please. This card is not designed with the current landscape of Flesh and Blood in mind. This card is designed with LL in mind, right? Or, alternatively, this card is designed with future introduction of characters in mind. And this is a tech piece for a character that does not currently exist. This is a tech piece for Zento or Benji, whenever Benji comes out in adult form, right? But the problem is that Flesh and Blood is a competitive game, and Ranger is struggling now, right? Marlon's not doing too crash hot in CC. She is doing okay in LL events, where she has a little bit more at her disposal to make her draws a little bit more consistent. Riptide is going to, at this current point in time, forever meander in C to B tier until the end of days. Okay? This card doesn't do anything for any of the Ranger players who are currently in existence, or any of the Ranger characters that are currently in existence. And this was one of the cards that I was really excited for because it was in the trailer, and the art looked awesome. And for this to be a card that is very hard to trigger, only works in very niche circumstances, does not get a crazy amount of value out of it either. Like, unless they go 2 more attacks wide after you block this, with this, like, nothing's happening. Unless you're playing against a ninja character who somehow has buffed both of their daggers, you're not doing anything with this. The characters that this card helps into currently are some of Riptide's best matchups. This helps into Bolton. This card's really good into Bolton. This card's really good into Fang. With a Fire and Brimstone turn, right? With a condition. This card's really good if neither player who plays Bolton nor Fang know how to say the words close the chain. Because the second that they play their effects and close the chain, this doesn't do anything. Now, granted, they lose value just by closing the chain in the first place for the most part. Like, Bolton loses via the Vanguard, which is like a +1 across all of his attacks. I'm sure that the Bolton player would prefer to actually swing with Raiden 3 times off of a double Lumina or a single Lumina, swing Raiden twice, then swing it twice for 0. I thought about this card a lot in the short amount of time that it has been with me, and it is frustrating to say the least. I want to bring up something that I saw floating about. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Alright, I'm on the dreaded website, but this is where this conversation is happening, so that's where I have to go. So, somebody posted and asked, what are these cards designed for? And James White responded, LL for these cards. And we have somebody come in and say, in all honesty, why design cards for LL in a class that is currently struggling in CC? Especially Riptide, the poster child for traps, is in serious need of real firepower. I'm not trying to criticize, I love the game, it's just an honest question for a Ranger main. And then James White says, just because it has the trap card type does not mean that it's designed for Riptide. The number of cards in Pen designed specifically for LL is very small, a fraction of the set. If we make these narrow cards as M's in expansion slots, I'm sure fans will be pissed. So we made some interesting cards that are for LL in a set that gave us scope to do it. For what it's worth, Tiger Trap is more broadly applicable than LL and will flux in and out of relevance over time. Goo is obviously hard pointed towards Starvo/LL. It is very funny that he said the word goo is pointed towards Starvo. Can we wait? Alright, pause. Hold on a second. Can we appreciate the fact that James White wrote the words goo is obviously hard pointed towards Starvo? Like, out of context, that's really fucking funny. Oh shit, I had to think about it for a second. I'm like so deep in the fucking trenches that Q is hard pointed towards stuff. Shit. Alright. Far out. Okay. That should bring a little bit more levity to it. I think my issue with this is that just because it has the trap card type doesn't mean it's designed for Riptide. If it's a Ranger trap card and Riptide is the one who cares about Ranger trap cards, like why put the subtype trap on it at all? If it's not designed for Riptide, just don't put trap on it and just make it a D-react, right? Don't see. I think that you get like an. From just being in the Riptide community for so long, I feel like seeing the word trap is literally like a trigger face for some people. As soon as they see the word trap, they're like, oh, this got to be good in Riptide. And the second that anything in the card doesn't match their expectations of what a good trap for Riptide is, they're like, oh, well, what's the fucking point? Like, why would you make it a trap? I think, just thinking about it and talking about it now, my perspective is that the term trap should be seen as something that was added onto this card. So I feel as though the Rainbow Goo trap was initially created as a defense reaction for Lexi versing Starvo in LL. And then as they were developing it, they said, let's just throw the word trap on there as well, because that way if Riptide ever wants to play this card, he'll get a little bit more of a boost out of it. That is my words. That's the way that I'm going to that's my positive outlook for it. The number of cards in Pen's design specifically for LL is very small, a fraction of the set. I'm not too sure how many cards he's referring to here that are designed for Living Legend, but with Tiger Trap and Rainbow Goo Trap coming out, it feels weirdly specific that the two Ranger cards are designed for LL, right? And he goes on to say, Tiger Trap is more broadly applicable than LL and will flux in and out of relevance over time. That just makes me think that we are going to be getting Zen 2 when we hit Part the Mistveil 2. whenever that happens, because it was like a very, very successful set. And I'm sure that a lot of people want to see Zen and Enigma and Nu come back into the format, because that was some people's first hero, some people's favorite heroes. Part of Misfell was a very, very popular set outside of the States and all of that sort of stuff, from my knowledge. So I'm in two minds about this sort of response, right? Because on one hand, Riptide and Rangers in general are not doing very good in CC, and it would be a lot nicer to see cards that can be used currently in the current climate of the game, rather than cards that are setting up for the future. Because we've had those. We've had enough of these cards. We've had so many of these cards that, like, maybe one day they'll be useful, right? And when you're getting 1 to 2 cards in a set, especially with Ranger players having literally 2 years of waiting and just feeding off of expansion slot cards to improve their decks, getting a card that only might be useful in the future and is not currently useful in that expansion slot is a real bummer. And it would really be nice to see cards that come in that are playable straight away. Like Intoxicating Shot. Intoxicating Shot was a phenomenal expansion slot card, right? If they could make something like Intoxicating Shot's level, where it's not the craziest powerful thing in the world, but it is a good rate and plays into the character, what the character wants to do, then keep doing stuff like that. Take the Bait was another amazing card. I think that whoever, you know what, whoever's the guy who actually gives a fuck about Riptide, who made these 3 Riptide specializations, whoever this dev is, get him to make some regular ass Ranger cards. Because this guy, whoever this person is cooking when they made these Riptide cards, right? And then on the other hand, it's good to see that they're setting us up for the future. But I have LSS recently has this tendency to set us up for the future with no real sense of payoff, right? Heavy hitters went by and people were like, neither Olympia nor Betsy have weapons. Maybe they'll get weapons in the future. Well, shit. Just jumping in to mention, by the way, Olympia, I'm literally editing the video right now, and I just thought about this. Olympia and Betsy both care about wagering, and outside of Betsy getting some specializations, she hasn't gotten any wager support. There hasn't been any wager support, and now they've given wager on a card that's a pirate action. If you read this card, this legitimately would be the most goated fucking card in both of them. A 0 for 3 that wages and blocks 3? And blocks 3? It's a head jab and it blocks 3 and it prevents you from losing the wager? What are we doing? What are we doing? I just thought about this. This is a crazy card. And Betsy and Olympia both can't fucking play it. LSS, why? I'm sorry, I'm manic, but I've just been watching the whole video. And oh my god, this card fucking is insane. Come on, man. Why can't Betsy or Olympia run this fucking card? Anyway, back to my previous ramblings. Now, obviously, that is a unique case because it came out later that both Betsy and Olympia were originally designed purely for limited, and they had no intention of making them adult heroes. So now I feel as though they're kind of scrambling to develop things for them that will help them be adult heroes, because you've created these heroes that people love and adore and want to play, but can't play because they aren't currently viable in the competitive landscape that is Flesh and Blood. And you get cards like Chain Reaction, which just don't really do anything. Baseline, they're a yellow for 4 value D-React sometimes. But that in an expansion slot with such a cool effect that looks like it would be powerful, it's just crazy that there's no payoff for it, and we still don't have a payoff for it, right? So what was this video about? This 40-minute long ramble yap sesh about this new card. And it wasn't even about this new card, it's just tangential to this card. I think that Flesh and Blood has a issue where characters will come out, and because it is a hero-centric format where you assign yourself to a character or you play a character, you will end up with people who specifically only want to engage with that character. And as the roster grows, and trust me, the roster is going to be growing, because with these changes to the LL point system where new characters come out with only half the LL points and older characters have 1.5 times the LL points, the roster is going to continue growing. We're going to end up with like 90, 80 heroes that are CC viable at one point, because new heroes are going to come out of the gate, they're going to be pushed, they're going to have a lot of power, and the 1.5 times multiplier is not going to matter for a lot of heroes, because a lot of heroes do not have the capacity to get wins. So having a multiplier on 0 is still 0 LL points. And as we go, with more cards coming out like this, that have some sort of aspect that pertain to an older character who may not necessarily have the power to operate in the current landscape of characters, you are going to run into frustrations from that player base that have so dutifully stood by this hero. I have seen people talking about Riptide for 3 years since the guy came out, right? There have been people who have been non-stop playing this character. It is the only character they play. They love Flesh and Blood. They play a little bit here and there of different characters, but they always come back to Riptide. And they have seen this sort of card, and it's starting to get, like, the camel's back is starting to get pretty heavy. Pretty burdensome, if I do say so myself. I've seen people already being like, we've got one spoiler left. At the time of recording, the last Ranger spoiler has not been spoiled. Whether that is an equipment or an arrow remains to be seen. It has not been spoiled yet. I have seen people, and I've had conversations with people who are saying, yep, if this next spoiler sucks, I'm not buying any of this set. If this next spoiler sucks, I might just take a break for a year until LSS gives me a reason to play Ranger. And I can't speak of that from a Marlin perspective, because I've only dabbled a little bit in Marlin, and it's not really... I can't really say too much about that side of things. All I can say is that this card is, whether it is good or not in the future, I don't think it is going to change the sour taste that it has left in some people's mouths from it just being a card of all time that exists in the Majestic slot that will probably... I'm probably going to get 3 rainbow foils for $5 Australian each and put them in my bulk of Ranger cards that never get used, because there's just no point. But maybe there will be a point in the future. Who knows? I didn't want this to be a negative video, and obviously I'm trying to be a little bit more nuanced with my takes, but it is definitely hard seeing this after getting so excited from seeing the common traps that were provided. I thought that this card was going to be absolutely phenomenal. I thought it was going to be an arrow and a trap. That would have been pretty gas. That would have been pretty cool. But instead we got a silver bullet that is named in such a way that makes you think that it's for literally a single character who doesn't exist in the format that the other character can actually fucking play in. I mean, you know what? If Lexi wants to run this in LL to combat Zen, go nuts, man. I don't think that is even going to be worth it, but it is what it is. Oh, my lord. I hope that I provided something of value from just airing my thoughts about this card. I hope that you enjoyed if you did stick around for this long. Yeah. Let's see what happens. Take care, look after yourselves and each other, have a great rest of whatever it is wherever you are, and subscribe if you feel like watching more TCG content, mainly about Flesh and Blood. Bye guys!